Bend over to your right.
What the was that?
What's up, Bears fans? People want to hear me talk.
What's going on, Bears fans, and welcome to another episode of the Nicholas Moreano Show. I'm your host, Nicholas Moreano. Make sure to like, subscribe, leave a comment on these episodes as we keep doing them, as we're slowly and fastly, and the NFL draft is basically around the corner, I feel like. And thank goodness, because I'm really excited. And you know what? I get more and more excited because I feel like every single day there's a new discussion happening, whether it's on Twitter, even with myself, like what can the Bears possibly do with not only number 10, but number 39, 41, the second round, and then all the rest of the remaining draft picks. But appreciate you guys for being here, and appreciate you guys supporting the channel. So today we are definitely going to talk about the Texas Pro Day that happened yesterday. And for those of you maybe who missed it, Ryan Poles was in attendance, and so was running backs coach Eric Bieniemy. And that should be no surprise to really anybody that the Bears, brass is at different places. On last Friday you had Dennis Allen, defensive coordinator, and head coach Ben Johnson at Michigan's Pro Day. So you're going to see the Bears show up to, obviously these bigger programs, but equally some of these smaller programs as well, to find these draft prospects that they believe are going to help out their football team. And before we kind of get into some of the players that, I've been watching a little bit more, just reading a little bit more about from Texas, let's really quickly, there was a update on Braxton Jones, and, just kind of scrolling through Instagram. Of course, I follow a lot of the Bears players on there, but he posted just a quick video of himself on Instagram stories, and it was just him walking. Showed the video showing his feet, and he kind of has this I don't want to call it a brace on his left leg, but there's definitely something on his left foot. But in like the caption, he says "out that boot" with a smiley face emoji. And that that sparked a huge, I think, discussion amongst Bears fans. There was a big reaction to it, where people are, essentially saying in the comments like, "Oh, get ready to draft Will Campbell. Get ready to draft a tackle." Then you have other people pushing back, like, "What are you guys talking about?" I don't know what to make of that. Like, I'm not saying just because Braxton Jones is kind of looks in the video not walking as like normal as he would be had he not had the injury, or, again, season-ending injury after the second game against Detroit, where he fractures ankle in that game. But I think it got a lot of people thinking, and it got me going back to what Ryan Poles talked about at the NFL scouting combine, because he was asked about Braxton Jones. And really quickly, this was what he said about Braxton Jones at the NFL scouting combine. Obviously, you never want guys to go through injuries, and we've got to see how he comes through on the other side of this. I know everything's been progressing on schedule, and he's doing a good job with that. He's been very active with rehabbing to get back on his feet. So again, this is, I think, an important part of this. That's another spot where there's going to be competition, and you build the line with the best 5 guys. So we'll see where that goes through this offseason and training camp. Okay. Progressing in the right direction. I think we're kind of seeing that with Braxton, how he said "out that boot," but also that last part. There's going to be competition. That's another spot where there's going to be competition. And since that comment that Ryan Poles made, like, the Bears have obviously made a bunch of additions with Jonah Jackson, Drew Dahlman, and Joe Tooney, but not specifically at the tackle spot. And that just got me thinking, well, there's a lot of people that believe maybe you don't need to necessarily replace a guy like Braxton Jones. And, to some credit, like, I do believe that. But here's how I'll frame it, you guys. Here's how I'll frame it. I don't believe that Braxton Jones has played well enough to not be replaced, if that makes sense, right? I mean, he's been, I would say, definitely a serviceable player. Just looking at his stats, played in 40 games in 3 seasons, allowing 14 sacks, 8 quarterback hits, and 76 hurries. We know his limitations or what his weakness is in terms of being able to absorb bull rushes and things like that. Not maybe the most physical tackle, but we'll get the job done. So, but how I frame it is, I don't think he's played well enough to not be replaced. And that's going to be ultimately the discussion that I think the Bears are going to have with themselves. Ryan Poles, Ian Cunningham, Ben Johnson, as they evaluate the tape, evaluate these prospects, and see what they want to do. Whether it's drafting a tackle at 10 or with their first round draft pick, or maybe selecting one later on, 39 or 41 in the second round could be, a nice sweet spot. I just had a scouting report done on Bear Goggles On. Please go, check out that website, follow them on Twitter, on Josh Connerly, the left tackle for the Oregon Ducks, who I think a lot of the strengths that he has would fit with what Ben Johnson wants to run in his offense. So maybe that could be an option for the Bears as they're looking to maybe continue upgrading, because again, that quote from Ryan Poles, looking for that competition, right? Or, to quote it exactly, that's another spot where there's going to be competition. Not unless he's referencing maybe Karan Amagaji there. Could be, right? The former 3rd-round draft pick last season. Obviously had a slow start to training camp with injuries. And then when he was asked to play, there were definitely some areas of improvement that need to be had for him going into his second season. So competition, though, I think that's a good thing for, every single member of this Bears football team, but specifically at positions that you might be still questioning at this point after making upgrades. You just want to ensure that line is in the best position possible to succeed with the players that you still think have, more room to grow. And that could potentially be one of these, rookie draft picks that the Bears bring in, come April 24th when the draft officially starts. So that's going to be an interesting just storyline to watch as the Bears continue to go through this draft process. And as we kind of talk about the draft process, I want to get now into, the Texas Pro Day. And like I said, Ryan Poles was there. So was running backs coach Eric Bieniemy. And I think that's to me almost the more intriguing. Actually, they're both intriguing, but that does lead you to, maybe question like, hey, Eric Bieniemy's there. Who are they looking at? So let's get into some of those players. And the first one I think that should come up that makes sense for the Bears, right, is Kelvin Banks Jr., the left tackle. PFF has him ranked number 20th on their big board. And just looking at some of the stats here, you guys, and I was only able to watch, one full game of his, and then also just, couple of like snippets and reading articles about him. So didn't get a chance to do like the deep dive that, I normally like doing. But, I'm going to rely on some of the other things that I've read and just how people are viewing him as, the Bears could potentially looking at Kelvin Banks. I would say, too, early on in the draft process, I know when a lot of these mock drafts were coming out, I feel like Kelvin Banks was, mocks of the Bears at 10 consistently at different mock drafts. So I think that, maybe that's definitely changed as the process has gone on. And that's okay. I mean, maybe it's going to be reflective of how the draft shapes out to be what the first versions of the mocks were, as opposed to the later ones. Who knows? But Kelvin Banks was definitely a guy I remember seeing like one mock draft from NFL Network, a mock draft from ESPN. There's Kelvin Banks. Okay, we'll see what ends up happening. But has primarily and only played left tackle for the Longhorns the last 3 seasons, 934 snaps in 2024, 983 in 2023, 857 in 2022. Looking at his 2024 season, had an overall grade, according to PFF, of 86.2, allowed 1 sack, 2 quarterback hits, and 7 quarterback hurries. The previous season only allowed a sack again, 1 quarterback hit, 10 hurries. And then 2022, 2 sacks, 1 hit, 9 hurries. Just looking at some of the grades, he did grade out better as a pass blocker than he did a run blocker, and he was more effective in a zone running scheme with a 81.5 grade as opposed to a gap scheme, which you'll see Ben Johnson utilize both of those. Actually, last season, 2024, he was utilizing more of the zone running scheme, and then the previous 2 seasons when he was calling the plays for the Lions, there was more of a focus than the gap run scheme than he did in 2024. So again, he fits he's familiar, I should say, with obviously what Ben Johnson has run with the Detroit Lions. But again, just some of my notes, because I took some feedback from what you guys were saying about just when I was reading off some of the notes that I take during games. A little bit more of a summary style, I think, would be more effective. But I think the big thing that, I just saw, just kind of scrolling through my notes here, he does have, I like the aggressiveness he plays with. Whether it's in those pass sets or as a run blocker, he's going out and initiating that contact. And it popped up, I think, apparent to me because I just had watched Josh Connerly from Oregon. And I would definitely say that wasn't as prominent, the aggressiveness, the physicality, the pop sometimes that he would create on a block when I was comparing it to a guy like Kelvin Banks. Like, I did see that more often. So, obviously that's a good thing. That's something that I value in offensive line. I do want someone that has a bit of aggressive nature. When I was at the NFL scouting combine, I got a chance to ask him just his mentality when he gets to the edge and he gets, to be a puller and he sees maybe a smaller DB. And I forget the exact wording, but he basically said he wanted to obliterate the guy. And he should, right? Like that should be the goal. If you're an offensive tackle and you get that kill shot on one of these smaller DBs, because he also said if like you're trying to dance around with these guys, that's where you'll see the offensive tackle miss. So he's looking to take the guy out. And I think that's a good philosophy to have. Really quickly, just some of his physical measurements: 6'5", 33.5-inch arms, 315 pounds. And really quickly, just kind of doing some more research on that, because I think the measurables are going to be really important for if the Bears do end up drafting a tackle. And just looking at where Kelvin Banks ranks as a tackle with those measurements, his arms 33.5, that's a 26th percentile. But the wingspan that Banks has at 84 3/8, that's actually the 82nd percentile when it comes to tackles. So, maybe for a guy like Ryan Poles and Ian Cunningham, Ben Johnson, they look at those and it's just not quite what they want in their tackle. They want maybe to have those longer arms, those physical attributes that maybe they believe fits better for an offensive tackle in the NFL. So I completely, I get that. If that rules them out, you can't fault them for going on what they believe is right. But I will say that, I did enjoy the film, just watching it from what I was able to see there. And that was against, what was I watching? Against the Georgia tape. Saw some pretty good things there. And just looking at some draft profiles, NFL comparisons, this is Lance Zierlein, who I feel like I've been reading Lance Zierlein ever since I was in high school. Peter Skoronski, Christian Darrisaw. Those are obviously some pretty good offensive linemen. Skoronski, is it with the Tennessee Titans, if I'm not mistaken? But the guys that I think it's a good group of people to be compared to. Obviously, one is now playing inside, and then you have Christian Darrisaw, who last I remember was with the Vikings. Can't even remember exactly where he's at now, but yeah. So look, Kelvin Banks, would I make the pick at 10 for Kelvin Banks? Probably not. I don't think that would be my got to run up the card, have Roger Goodell, name Kelvin Banks at number 10. I don't think that's for me. I have seen some mocks where he's gone even 13 to the Arizona Cardinals. So he's probably in that range. And if you probably want a guy like Banks, it's going to be somewhere in that first round. And maybe the Bears end up trading back with a team that wants to move up for, God knows who. But Like that is probably the range of what you're going to have to, get a guy like that. Probably 10 to 15, somewhere around there. It could be way later. But Kelvin Banks, an intriguing prospect. And I think if the Bears are looking to move on from Braxton Jones, maybe he's in consideration. But like I said, the wingspan could be a factor as to, what the Bears ultimately think of a guy like that. 21 years old and still has obviously his best football, I would think, ahead of him. But I think that's somebody to just keep an eye on. And I know a lot of Bears fans probably here in the chat. I wonder, what do you think of Kelvin Banks at 10 or even in general? Let me know. Let me know in the chat. But honestly, guys, as I was going down the list of prospects that Texas had, they have so many. And, I'll do one more and then we'll get to a break. And then the next two, I think, are honestly my favorite guys to think about and talk about. But let's get to this next guy. And that's Alfred Collins, the defensive tackle from Texas, obviously. Measurements really quick: 6'6", 332 pounds, 34 and 5/8 inch arms, 10-inch hand. Guy is when I was watching the tape, man, he's got some pop in his game when he's engaging and making contact with these offensive linemen. It was interesting how Texas kind of deployed him. You'll see him very often in that A gap. He's moved out to the B gap, but he's got some versatility in his game. And I have actually the exact stats here. In 2024, he was in the A gap 146 times, 299 times in the B gap, over the tackle 129 times, and then outside the tackle 19 times. So you saw, however Texas wanted to use him, Alfred Collins was out there, lining up wherever they felt was potentially a good matchup, and played in 16 games in 2024, had only 1 sack, 17 quarterback hurries, 6 batted passes. So I like the, when he wasn't maybe finishing that rep, still trying to find a way to impact the play, throwing his big hand up, 10-inch hand to block down the passes. But what I did like from him, you guys, and, just have a couple of notes, just share some of the takeaways that I have of Alfred Collins here. When here's the caveat. When he's engaged and going, man, he's a force inside. He will use power. He has this nifty little swim move that he also has with his hands. And, watch the SEC championship against Georgia. But nice. He has a nice ability to stack and shed, find ball carriers in the backfield. The swim move, like I mentioned. And then as I was watching the game, as it got further and further on, and that game did end up going into overtime, Texas does end up losing. It seemed like the conditioning or the effort maybe just wasn't there as consistently as it was to obviously start the game. I think that would be maybe something for teams to maybe want to ask about or figure out what was kind of going on here. If this is a conditioning thing, then yeah, we need to work on that. If it's even a effort thing, to me, that's almost a little bit more concerning if it's effort. Because, if you that's something that you can give regardless. So obviously your conditioning may affect that, but that's just maybe things to kind of decipher as you're going through this draft process, interviewing process or prospects, and figuring out what exactly is going on. But like I said, when he's engaged and forcing his just huge frame onto another opposing offensive lineman, you see the force, you see the dent in the pocket he can create. And this is, I think, would make a good, I'm not gonna say placeholder, but somebody that could eventually replace a guy like Andrew Billings, that run stuffing defensive tackle that is going to primarily play the run, does have that versatility though to provide a pass rush. That's where a guy like Alfred Collins would make sense to me if you're looking to upgrade that position and just get more depth on the defensive line. Because he definitely, I wouldn't consider him like the 3 tech, or he's more suited, like I said, playing that run stuffing, can take on the double teams. But like I said, you want to figure out like why maybe. And again, that was one game that I watched, but even if I look at, just some of the draft profiles here, let's see, Lance Zierlein wrote his weaknesses. I also saw this as well, like an average first step explosiveness into blockers, plays with inconsistent base, leading to imbalance, can be a step slow to shed blocks, tackle his gap. Okay, leggy and labored when working edge to edge as a rusher. Okay, but I think there's almost like maybe even an untapped potential as a pass rusher, because looking at his stats at Texas, only 3 career sacks. 1 came last year, 2 in 2023. He's intriguing to me, and the NFL comparison, Javon Kinlaw, I can see that. I can definitely see that. Again, from Lance Zierlein of the NFL Network, but Alfred Collins, and maybe another guy just to keep your eyes on, Bears fan, as the Bears are still looking. I still think looking to upgrade the trenches on both sides of the ball. And the first players I just talked about, trenches. The next 2 that I'm going to talk about after this break, man, I think I found one of my draft crushes. But we'll get to that after a quick word from one of our sponsors here, Windy City Sports Cards. At Windy City Sports Cards, you guys, they specialize in buying and selling all things related to Chicago sports. Whether you're a diehard fan of the Bears, Bulls, Cubs, White Sox, or Blackhawks, they've got you covered with an extensive selection of sports memorabilia and collectibles. In addition to their Chicago-focused items, they also offer a vast collection of sports trading cards and memorabilia from your favorite teams and players. Visit their online store to find exactly what you're looking for to complete your collection or to discover a new favorite. Check them out at 312-WindyCitySports.com. Again, that's 312-WindyCitySports.com. All right, everybody, welcome to the Nicholas Moreano Show. I'm your host, Nicholas Moreano. We're talking about these Texas draft prospects. Just went through Kelvin Banks Jr. and Alfred Collins. Let me wrap that up too. Would I want a guy like Kelvin Banks on the Bears roster? I would say I would. I just don't think it would be at 10. That just wouldn't. I don't think that's the move or the value there. But I wouldn't mind a guy like Kelvin Banks to play that left tackle position for the Bears. If he fits, if Ryan Poles and Ben Johnson think he fits there. Alfred Collins as well. Not opposed to that. If the Bears wanted to maybe get him, let's see. Chad Reuter, who also writes for the NFL Network, he did a 4-round mock. I'm sure that Alfred Collins ended up somewhere in there. So I just kind of want to see, what one person in the media kind of thinks. There we go. Pick 51 to the Dallas Cowboys. So maybe he's there with one of those 2nd-round draft picks. I don't know. And maybe that's too high to go get a guy like Alfred Collins. Maybe he is more of a round 3 type of guy. But that's just kind of a ballpark of where maybe he could go from one person. And you can go to many other mock drafts, and he's going to probably be somewhere else for everybody else. All right. The next guy I want to get to, like I said, I teased this right before the break. Andrew Mukuba, safety, number 4 for the Texas Longhorns. Man, okay, guys, like I see. This is why I do love watching film of players, because of this kind of reaction that I get. When I was watching his game against Georgia, SEC championship, man, he just was always around the football, instinctive. I think that's the main word that came to mind when I was watching him. Instinctive. In breaking routes, was a guy that would be in the right place, dislodge the football, I think, against the Georgia Bulldogs' first drive there, and he would lay the wood. There was a hit against the quarterback, ended up being a targeting call, but man, he comes up and lays a thump. Like the quarterback's helmet flies off, huge hit in the middle of the field, but Andrew Mukuba did not have any hesitation whatsoever. And I love that from a safety. I really, really do. And that is even more impressive because he was playing in the slot the past 2 seasons for Clemson, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, he transferred from Clemson to Texas for his senior season. And man, you would not really just watching Makuba last season, you wouldn't expect that at all, seeing that he didn't even play that safety spot because he just looked so fluid. He ended up having 5 interceptions, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know how it doesn't have the interceptions on here, but it was, let's see, touchdowns allowed 0, 5 interceptions. I don't know. Like when I look at the Bears' needs, safety is up there because you don't have Jaquan Brisker currently signed after this season, and neither is Kevin Byard. So whether are you going to rely on guys like Jonathan Owens, Elijah Hicks? Like that wouldn't be the move I'd make. Andrew Mukuba though, damn, he's fun to watch. The one thing that I was seeing though when I was watching his film, he's aggressive. He's going to be rangy, get to his spots. He's going to be all around the football, making some of those tackles though. ETN, the running back who'll be drafted from Georgia, made a miss a couple times. And then, there are plays where after he maybe whiffs, in the open field, you see him come downhill near the goal line and make a tackle on ETN where if he didn't, it would have been a touchdown. So you're going to have to live with that, I think. And that's, I'm okay with it. I am okay with Makuba having to miss some tackles if he's going to make some of those big plays. Like if that's the type of player he's going to be, like completely understand where he can get better. And if he can improve that aspect of his game after only playing safety for 1 season, man, there's a lot of potential for a guy like that. There's a lot of potential. His another kind of weakness because I've been gushing about Makuba, like 5'11", 186 pounds. So he is smaller. He is a smaller guy, and you did see that show up at times. There was another play in that SEC championship against Georgia last year where, look, ETN's got the momentum running down the hill. Makuba he meets him there, but he's not quite able to bring down the running back to prevent the touchdown. It's a tough play to make, especially with momentum going in ETN's favor, but it ends up being a score. So, like, he's not gonna be the most reliable tackler, whether it's in the open field or just that physical presence. But he, like I said earlier, plays physical. He will lay down a hit. He was quick, instinctive on screen plays, on plays that went to the boundaries. He was there. It was just, as I was like typing up these notes, I'm like, number 4 is there again. He's there again. It was just so consistent, and I loved it. I honestly loved it. So, I think that's a prospect that, like I said, as I continue to watch more and more of him, man, I really, really liked what he was able to do. Just looking at 2024 grades according to PFF here, 89.7 coverage grade. Like they have these circles, different color coded to indicate like where he's at. That blue, like this nice, I don't know, is it a teal blue? Maybe all the way over to the right side of the kind of grid that they have here, meaning that he was one of the best. Missed tackle rate, kind of closer to the average line, but a little bit above, and 14.4% missed tackle rate. Not great. Run defensive grade, 75.8. It was green. Not bad. Forced incompletion rate, 26.1. Also another high teal blue. So that's the thing. He's going to be, I think, he's going to be probably a better coverage guy than he'll be a tackler, but he also has that ability to play physical as hell when it comes in the running game. Just has to make the tackle. He could do that, man. I'd love to see Makuba in a Bears uniform. So I think it's official. And I'm probably do a show at this at some point. My draft crushes. You already got one. Andrew Mukuba, watching him today. Awesome. He is awesome. I think that there's obviously like strengths and weaknesses that I can relay here from NFL Network, but you guys can go read those. Give them, their Nick, you speak in my language, talking about a safety. Bears need to take one on day 2. Yeah, I agree there, man. I don't see why they wouldn't. I don't, unless obviously the board lines up where you still feel like you can find better value elsewhere. But if you are looking at the safety spots, yeah, I like that. Eric Bochan also here. Castro, could Makuba and Castro could be nice going forward. I agree with you there. Can never be wrong with having, more Iowa guys. Sebastian Castro, who you're referencing to. The Bears, he did say at the NFL Scouting Combine during his podium session that he did meet with the Bears several times. So also a Illinois native. That could also make sense. They do play different though. Like I mean, I don't know. Makuba's just got, when I'm watching him, it's just popped up on film consistently. I'm like, damn, rangy, the hits, and then the missed tackles. But I do like what he can bring. And now look. There are more prospects too that Texas has. Like I could have easily talked about Vernon Broughton, the other interior defensive tackle that they have, and maybe that's a guy that the Bears are looking at. Isaiah Bond. Actually, this would be a good point to mention Isaiah Bond, because I think I'd be, missing out here if I didn't. But he was. Make sure I find the tweet here. Yep, here we go. CJ Vogel, who, let's see, College Football Insider recruiting analyst covering the University of Texas. He tweeted out yesterday that Isaiah Bond has a 30 visit set for next month with the Chicago Bears, Atlanta Falcons, Green Bay Packers, Los Angeles Rams. Ran a 4.3 40 and a jumper 34 inches at his pro day yesterday afternoon. So Isaiah Bond, put him on keep your eyes, watch for this guy. This was somebody really quickly, 14 games played last season, out wide for 245 of those snaps, in the slot 72, targeted 56 times, 34 receptions, 540 yards, 5 touchdowns. That vertical play threat, guys. Maybe look, the Bears have signed Zacchaeus, Devin Duvernay, Olamide Zacchaeus, and Devin Duvernay, but maybe they're still looking for another deep passing threat to add to this offense. You never know, honestly. 5'11", 180 pounds for Isaiah Bond, and maybe that's just, again, another player to keep an eye on. Like I said, contested catch rate 27.3%, not very good. Receiving grade had a 70.3. He did have a 5.6% drop rate, was higher than average. I would need to watch, honestly, more film of him, but that's just a kind of quick synopsis of what Isaiah Bond could do. But I do want to get to this last prospect to highlight here, because it goes back to Eric Bieniemy, the Bears running back coach. He was also at Texas Pro Day, guys. And, naturally you look, okay, who does Texas have at the running back position? Oh, Jaydon Blue. Now, Jaydon Blue, he is a burst of just pure speed. And I apologize for anybody who watched the Moreano Minute yesterday. Like, I gave you his 40 time from the NFL Scouting Combine, which ended up being, if I'm not mistaken, here, I pulled up right here, a 4.38, which is the second fastest time among running backs. Well, it was also revealed that Jaydon Blue at that time was dealing with was it a tear or let's see, make sure I find this right here. But Jaydon Blue was dealing with an injury at the time when he actually ran that 40. So when he ran the 40 at his pro day, 4.28 and 4.29 were the 2 times shared from scouts from Texas running back Jaydon Blue in the 40-yard dash. And that's a tweet from Jordan Reed of ESPN. Or did you say Jordan? Oh, yeah, Jordan Reed. I was sorry, Jaydon Blue. But Jordan Reed is the reporter there. But I want to make sure that I got this right, that he was dealing with a significant, or not a significant injury, but an injury that, there we go. he had a slight tear in his groin when he ran that 40. It still ended up being the second fastest 40 among running backs at the NFL scouting combine. And now, what? Man, it's over a month now later. 4.28 at his pro day. Like, the dude can fly. He can absolutely fly. And that is, I think, intriguing if you're the Bears and looking to still upgrade the running back spot. It's also kind of when you're looking at different sites and where they have, the measurements, you have PFF that has Jaydon Blue at 6 foot, 200 pounds. And then you have the NFL draft profile at NFL.com, 5'9", 196 pounds. I would love to say that, I was that much taller than what my original draft profile is, but that's not how it goes. So I'm going to go with the NFLdraft.com being 5'9" there, but he, this is a guy in his 2024 season, 135 rushing attempts, 728 yards, 8 touchdowns. That led the team. He also had 41 receptions for 41 receptions on 58 targets for 365 yards. And Jaydon Blue didn't get the most carries for his team. It was their other running back, and his name's escaping me right now. So I know when I did my Moreano Minute, they're like, oh, running back that only had over 700 yards in college. Well, it wasn't the main runner there. So that's, not an issue whatsoever. His elusive rating, according to PFF, 113.1. That's that little blue dot all the way to the right in one of the top tiers. Yards after contact per attempt, 3.83. Also one of the better marks in college football last season. Gap and run grades. He had a slightly higher gap grade than he did a zone grade, but it was by literally 2 points, so it's not too significant there. But so it would be interesting though. He would fit, I would think, more Jahmyr Gibbs type role. And if the Bears are looking to draft, another Jahmyr guy like that fits that type of mold, where's DeAndre Swift then fit into the equation? Because I don't believe, regardless of what happens, like DeAndre Swift's going to be a part of this football team in 2025. That's how I view it, given his contract. And even if you want to take Ben Johnson's words at surface value of when he talked about him at the NFL scouting combine, like, I do believe that he's going to be there. And behind this revamped interior offensive line, he should have a better season. But would Jaydon Blue almost be, I don't know, I don't want to say repetitive to DeAndre Swift, but it's going to have that speed element, that ability to catch out of the backfield. But I think Jaydon Blue, honestly, is just even more explosive than Swift. So, like, I just don't think, I don't know. I'm not ruling it off by any means. I'm just wondering what back is Ben Johnson looking for? I think it's pretty apparent they're looking for another running back to add to DeAndre Swift. Roschon Johnson, we're talking about Texas, bring him up here. Like, if that's what he's looking for, okay, that would be interesting. It would be interesting because I think that would also fit the Gibbs type. And I guess if you're trying to really be as basic right now as possible with, like, okay, what do the Bears have? Roschon would fit more of the David Montgomery, and DeAndre Swift would fit more of the Gibbs, but they're both not those players, if that makes sense. Like, if I don't want, hopefully you guys are getting what I'm saying here, but I'd be curious if they're looking at a guy like Jaydon Blue, how that fits. And this is going to be what I always need to remind myself of, and when I'm talking to you guys too, it's not going to be an apples to apples comparison or situation from the Detroit Lions to the Chicago Bears. It's going to be different. They're going to have to play different. You don't have those same exact players. You can look at things that you did and maybe want to try to replicate that in your own version, but it's not going to be exactly the same. But Jaydon Blue, he was definitely an exciting player to watch. Some of the plays that he made and some of the tackles he was able to make in the or avoid tackles in the open field gets you excited about, what he could potentially do at the next level. And maybe being more of a primary back than what he was in Texas in 2024. So we'll see, though, you guys, because I thought just looking through the list of players that Texas had, man, they have a lot of good ones. They have a lot of good players that also happen to fit with what maybe the Bears are looking for in terms of needs that they still need to address following free agency and entering this NFL draft. Even the tight end that they have, I didn't really, as I was watching Jaydon Blue and just Kelvin Banks, like he was making plays. Gunnar Helm, 6'5", 250. Let's see, really quickly, 60 receptions, 786 yards, 7 touchdowns. Like he is on my list of when I, watch some more of these tight ends just to kind of look into him a little bit more. But the Bears are also looking to add another tight end, even though they signed Durham Smythe from Miami. You obviously have Cole Kmet. Could make sense there too, you guys. So Texas, everything's bigger in Texas, right? That's how the saying goes. But they did have some intriguing prospects, and I think guys that the Bears should be interested in. No doubt about it, they should be interested in some of those players. And I think that'll be maybe a common trend here. Once we see the Bears show up to these pro days, let's look into some of the players that they could potentially look at as the Bears are looking to continue filling out this roster. But hey, we've hit that 40-minute mark. That's where I want to keep a lot of these videos around here. Again, just make you guys more informed Bears fans as we're looking to see who the Bears are going to add to this football team in 2025. But I appreciate everybody for hanging out on this episode, your Wednesday morning. Appreciate it as always. Before you head out, if you haven't already, please like, subscribe, leave a comment. This show is also in a podcast version, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, so you can check it out there later today. But if you also haven't told anybody about a fellow Bears fan, let them know, man. Let them know. We're building up this channel, have good content for you guys, and continue doing my thing, covering the Bears to the best of my ability. So that's going to do it for this episode of the Nicholas Moreano Show. I will, I'll most likely be back tomorrow. There's some things going on. I'll let you guys know ahead of time. But look, if I am going live, it's going to be around that 9 a.m. mark. So make sure to tune in, and you'll definitely not want to miss another episode. But that's going to do it. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. And until next time, adios, Bears fans.
Bend over to your right.
What the was that?
What's up, Bears fans? People want to hear me talk.